now I just have to remember to unmute the correct mics and remember to mute the stream in the background.
What is my sneak attack damage?
Ooh.
3.
Yeah, watch that one where we could hear you reacting to us talking only.
Right, yeah, that happens sometimes where
Yeah.
yeah, I had some early or
Just
very
got to unmute itself.
like early streams where I was using speaker volume from instead of headphones, and so I turned only my mic was on, so nobody could hear what anyone was saying except for very faintly off of my mic. I think that happened once or something like that. It was rough.
Yeah.
There was we came back from break and I didn't unmute anything, so it was just a silent battle for an hour.
And then we realized, oh shit.
They see the grid and the pieces move and stuff, and they're just what is happening here? I don't know.
Wasn't that episode 2?
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
It was the one where we ended up tying up those two guys, I think.
I'm old. All right, so introductions to the segment. We are waiting on Jonah a little bit for the main campaign, but we had this idea for something we are going to call party planning. So it's basically a mock session 0 of setting up a D&D party and how that would look like. A lot of people make characters isolated on their own and then bring them to a campaign and then just deal with the consequences of oops, no healers, or oops, no melee people, stuff like that.
All clerics.
Oops, all clerics is it can be fun actually. But
All
oops.
clerics is terrifying.
Still talking. Oops, all rogues is a a fine campaign to be in if that's what you want to be in. But if you want to play a regular, straightforward D&D game that has balanced kind of thing, so that everybody kind of gets a moment to shine and you cover all your bases, then this can be a good exercise to do in your session 0s. Aside from establishing hard and soft limits for people, and just making sure that you're running the kind of content people want to actually engage with, that your players are going to have fun with the kind of game you're going to run. Nobody wants to do body horror if they have body horror phobias or anything. If somebody has a phobia of butterflies, it's my job as DM not to do a swarm of butterflies on that character. So respect your players, respect your DMs, yada yada, you get it. But besides from that, all those little social things, there's the actual mechanics of things. And Tay, you brought up the idea of a rogue, but trying to split off from the classic rogue background stereotypes. And my question is, if you want to be a rogue or if you want to have a rogue vibe.
It's well, with my character Kara, who is lawful good, won't steal anything. She had to learn how to fend for herself because due to specific circumstances, her family was killed. She was on the street. She had nowhere to go. She was running from people who used to own her and her family. So she found herself in a rogue bar where that's where she had to learn how to survive.
Yeah. And I always there's a lot of rogues that have a lot of different typings. I know the scout is a lot of fun for me when I want to play a ranger that has no spell casting or any of that kind of magic end of things, but I still want that ranger vibe. Then scout is a rogue that works perfectly, and you're still being a super sniper kind of person, but with sneak attack instead of a swarm of arrows.
Yeah, I like that. I'll write that.
I love scout. Scout's awesome. Same thing with swashbuckler. Umbra, you brought that up earlier, where you get that pirate vibe, which you could play as the swashbuckling thing, or you could play a battle master fighter and have that same vibe. Yeah.
You got options.
Right.
Backstory wise, one of my favorite rogues that I've ever played was they by day they are a noble, the son of a noble, but by night they're just I'm going to fix all the shit my dad is doing.
Dexter. Wonderful example. Dexter is your you could do a modified soldier background or something, or really any background, but you could be anything. You could be noble, an acolyte. You could be anybody. And your backstory is basically you work for the city and you find out about these people that kind of got off on crimes they shouldn't have got off on, and you are also just a horrible murderer. So it's just a lawful evil rogue that isn't your typical rogue. You're you're only gonna murder, Like you're just there for the murder, but you're gonna pick out people that others don't mind you murdering. It's like this horrible criminal boss got found dead. It's like, should we investigate? Not really. We got other stuff to do. Who cares?
It's like that meme of if you kill a killer, the amount of killers stay the same.
Yeah,
kill them all.
Unless I kill 100 killers, then I've reduced it by 99. I think it's a Deadpool comic, right? I know one of the things I like are.
I think that was actually a Batman quote.
Pretty sure it's a Deadpool quote, but I don't know.
It's one of the two.
It might be both.
Definitely one of the two.
Could be both. Oh, it might be Deadpool in a Batman comic.
That would make a lot of sense. Deadpool just shows up wherever he wants to show up.
I mean, it wouldn't make a lot of sense for different universes, but that doesn't stop Deadpool.
They've crossed over before.
I think my favorite crossover was like Deadpool versus one of the My Little Ponies, which they explained due to their universe hopping abilities that both of them have. But I know I like Chris. I know I like Sonari a lot because she is a barbarian, but she's a nerd, and it's just like all the knowledge skills. I think except maybe religion, if I'm remembering right, and then but all like most of the knowledge skills on a barbarian is just funny to me.
It's hilarious.
It's awesome.
I was like mostly coming in the game that like did kind of come out more of like a necessity more than it did like a personal choice. It was like, oh, you need more smart people in this group.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's how I think a lot of these things work. Sometimes is people will notice, hey, we have a hole, and the party is screwed if we don't fill this hole. But then that can result in really cool like character choices, both in builds and in like backstory.
Like, hey, we're all dumbasses.
Right. So but yeah, so that scout rogue with some kind of background to like cover something else. I think with scout you already get like free expertises in like nature and survival or something like that. So you're already like nailing it on a bunch of key exploration skills. And then you've got that thieves tools, proficiency, sneaking around, probably some perception stuff. So a lot of that exploration stuff is covered, and probably range damage unless you wanted to go into the stabby stabs.
Fighting.
Yeah.
Something interesting you could do is if you want to play a rogue who's better at magic, you could play like an illusion wizard.
You could also just play a hexblade. I've thought about that before, where in a game where I've been like pre-prepping a possible future game of like all warlocks, and the thought that I was having was like, well, if you want to have a rogue but you wouldn't be playing a rogue, hexblade's kind of the way to go. You have you get the blade and smites, which are effectively the same thing as a sneak attack, but then you also have all these spells that can be situational and like kind of mimic skills. Right, like a rogue that has like a plus 30 stealth and a warlock that can just cast invisibility are, get to be kind of similar at a certain point. But yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks to Tasha's, there's the feat kind of already existed, but there's the feat where you can just get expertise in a skill.
Yeah. I actually took
nice.
that.
Yeah.
Lucien actually took that at level 4.
Mm-hmm. I think
mostly because it gave me +1 to a stat and a skill and a skill expertise.
I think
desperately.
Sonari also took that too.
Nice.
Picking up stealth because being sneaky is cool.
So when we started, you were saying like when you have a party, like everyone just choosing their own individually versus all getting together and choosing who you are as a group. My Thursday campaign, we didn't get together as a group, so we ended up rogue, warlock, wizard.
That warlock is going to need to make some certain spell selections so people don't die.
I'm the rogue.
Yeah.
And I'm also the healer.
Wait, how?
I have a bracelet where if I get hit, I can make a joke and heal other people. So I have a book of puns with me all the time. But
nice.
I had to, at level 8, multi-class to Cleric because it was getting ridiculous. Because our wizard went down.
You know what?
So much.
I would talk to the DM about like possibly going with Bard, just because it's funny to me that like a stand-up comedian that just makes people feel better, and like they get stabbed and they're just like, it wouldn't happen to you, buddy, and then they regain like 10 hit points.
Just puns.
Yeah,
Just all the puns.
all the
It
puns.
was a good choice for my character Cleric though, because like she was trapped inside all the time. She wasn't allowed to be out.
Mm.
And they live in the desert, and so she just saw moss for the first time and grass for the first time. And like absolute like her horse's name is Moss because she loves it. So I think Cleric was a good choice because she's a nature cleric.
Yeah.
Oh, I was expecting Trickster Cleric.
But for this party, we would have like ranged damage covered and all of our like exploration and scouting kind of stuff covered. Which like fully covering exploration is pretty well guaranteed at that point. I know there's infinite race options. I am also kind of again thinking of like a future campaign. I was thinking of doing something where everyone takes the Tasha's standard race. I forget what it's called. The variant ancestry or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
Right, where it's just +2 to a stat, +1 to a stat, either dark vision or a skill proficiency and a feat. And it's a you want to play an elf, it's like, cool, you're a weird elf, we're just doing this stat wise. You can still like say you came from elves or whatever. You just don't get those mechanical things, and you know, it just kind of flattens the curve on race selection. I've had like one too many times where somebody's like, I want to play Tabaxi because I want to go forever, and I'm just like, can we just move on, guys? But I don't like banning like individual ancestries. But you know, you have one. I've had one too many people be like, I want to play an elf, by which I mean a Triton, by which I mean an Aarakocra, and I'm like, what is this character? Like, what's happening? Just decide story wise what you're doing, and let's move on.
You just listed 3 different races, my friend.
These have nothing to do with each other, and they're all we're gonna be the same person, with like slight variants. Like being like, I want to be a rogue or a battle master is like, well, I could see how those two kind of could match up.
Yeah, because you could like.
Yeah, you're a
Isn't there,
tactical
like, a battle master?
tactical fighter type person that does extra dice damage. I'm like, yeah, cool. Those are kind of the same character almost.
Inquisitive rogue battle master.
Oh yeah, that could be rad.
That'd be really cool.
But we've got ranged, so we need some melee stuff going on, or tanking, or even healing or something.
Rune Knight could be really cool.
Rune Knight is rad. I know we
I
were
made
talking
the
about.
first Rune Knight.
You had a like buff weapon kind of Rune Knight was the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like stand in front of things and hit them really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really straightforward like Goliath Rune Knight.
I actually made a half-orc Rune Knight.
Also good.
Mostly because because imagine a crit while you're in giant size. That's like 7d6. If you're wielding a greatsword.
Right.
And you're just like, haha, delete. And
Is that? I'd have to do the math on that, but it goes from 2 to 4, and then 4
and
to.
then
Oh, if they're barbarian, there's the bonus dice.
half-orc also gets the
Right.
additional
Well, they get 1
weapon.
die, so that would be 5.
Yes.
They don't get 2.
And
They don't
yes,
get the
but
full
then if-
greatsword, but they just get 1.
yes, but then if you're in giant size,
And then giant
as-
size
which is
is
an extra
6.
d6.
Yeah.
and then that crit. Would the crit apply to that? I just realized.
It usually doesn't, because I know it doesn't to the racial feature. But I think it should. But I think
Yeah,
all
'cause
of it.
it's-
I like the rule of just extra dice get multiplied. All dice get multiplied.
Yeah,
It's a crit.
because
Dice get multiplied.
with giant size, it's just a flat extra d6.
Right.
It's not like an extra. It's not like you roll an extra dice of the weapon's damage.
Yep. Agree. I would still go for D12s just because I think D12s are cool.
I have not rolled with this yet.
Oh no.
I'm hoping it doesn't fuck me over first time.
For shame. But Rune Knight is a cool tank. I know I sent out into the chat. My Rune Knight build was an Eladrin elf with like with a hand crossbow, which is a little against type for the vibe the Rune Knight's supposed to be. But there's technically nothing in the rules of the mechanics of Rune Knight that need you to have a good strength, it can totally be a dex fighter.
Yeah, like, because even the rune saving throw is based on your constitution, not your strength.
Right.
So all you need is a decent constitution.
It is funny to me to think of like an elf who is like a longbow sniper and like just has killed enough giants to like take their magic, and now it just has the runes on the bow, and it's just like just sniping giants and with their own abilities.
The character I made is very heavily inspired by Nordic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Their name is literally Sigrid Jotun.
Nice.
Which is very funny to me because Jotun is giant.
Any unique background ideas? I feel like it's a pretty straightforward. You could fill in whatever family or whatever background.
Yeah.
You could cover. See, I don't think they have anything.
I was thinking raised by giants.
Yeah. Taken in as
which would
like
explain both.
the
which would explain the last name.
right. Taken in by giants or Goliaths and raised up with their magics and their big weapon swinging.
Yeah.
So I guess spotlight's on Chris to come up with like a healer or a magic user or something. I know I always have a standby of the man out of time. So like almost like Doctor Who, where they just like fall out of fall out of a phone booth and like look back and the phone booth's sparking and they're just like, oh dear. And then you just have like the chronomancy wizard just there. They just like show up because of time travel. And they just go, what year is it? And the people are like, 582? And it's like, of what age? And like they just like have no concept of when they are.
I'm actually playing a character that's from another world, which is sort of a similar concept.
Mm-hmm.
The funniest thing, though, is that my character recognizes fantasy tropes. So, like, if the big bad's giving a monologue, they'll just be like, let me guess, we have 30 minutes to live before your goons come and kill us. And then they say that exact thing, and then the final boss is just baffled.
Right.
It's just your next line.
Chris, do you have any ideas on things and stuff? I know I liked the like druids are always rad because they have like healing, and then they can also lock down in melee with the beast forms, and they can also do like other things. Clerics are pretty buffed for 5e if you want to be the on a mission from God type. And there's
I was actually thinking of Cleric on the next round character.
Yeah.
For backup.
Do you have like a D&D god in mind, or a domain or anything?
No.
Yeah.
I have done minimal research on it still.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know like Asimar is always cool just because they have that extra healing option with their like they have like a little lay on hands ability once a day, which is kind of rad. Also just busting out some angel wings and like flying over to a place is just cool.
Yeah.
What else is cool? There's Forge Cleric is kind of like a standby that a lot of people will go into, but I know the what is it, Twilight Domain in Tasha's has some theory crafter type DMs like banning it from their games outright. Like they look at it and just go no, and they're because it's just like because they get like 300-foot dark vision, which they can also give to like other characters. But to me, I don't think it's a very big deal because I think when you have more than 60-foot dark vision, I wonder on the return on investment in that, because a lot of times when you're using dark vision, you're like going through tunnels, and if your tunnel's 300 feet long, like what are you doing? Like you just have the tunnel bend at 80 feet, and it's like, all right, there you go. But I think they get like, I don't know, I haven't read it that obsessively, but because I haven't had an idea for a character that would vibe with the stars and moon theme. but they get some other features that worried people. I think they can fly when they're in dim light or darkness, like at a certain level. So it's like free fly, and then they had some kind of like free buff to parties and stuff. But I don't know. I'm always of the opinion that you follow the character build with the vibe you're going for versus the like trying to get the most numbers.
Yeah. In the same vein of like the of Taze, I like playing rogues, but without the typical build or the typical background.
Mm-hmm.
Like I guess not atypical, but just like a darker background for your cleric. It's always been an idea. I remember from, I think it was Critical Role, there was that cleric that I think was married to the Raven Queen or something.
He was a paladin, and he was like her champion, which he had to do to like save his sister or something. Yeah,
that wasn't.
Yeah.
I'm here too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the I'm the paladin and I'm here to save everyone and all of the puppies, and then it's just like my shit's real dark. Person background, Liam O'Brien. I believe the events that led into that was because his mom died, and he needed to like leave the campaign and like deal with his personal shit for a while. And then Matt just said no, and it's like he made an excuse to like get his character killed essentially, or taken out of the campaign. And then Matt was sort of like, well, that could happen, or you could become her the champion. And he like worked through a bunch of his issues. It was like, you know,
there was
not quite therapy. Go to therapy.
There was like a guest character that came in. I think he was a cleric, but
cleric guest character.
It was like I think it was something like he had died or something really dark had happened. It was like this.
I think there was I know there was a guy. He was a child actor, and he became a cleric of like just an odd deity type who like was considered like his wife or something. And it was like a really weird like domineering kind of what you call it, not mechanic, but you know, whatever the story type that they were going for. Oi!
Kasha.
Yeah, Kasha.
But to a dark. Oh, sorry. He was betrothed to Vesh. I was thinking Raven Queen just because of Vax.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Yeah.
I think there's because we have a scout. You don't have to have multiple scouts, but sometimes it's good to have like you have your heavy weapon fighter person who's probably going to be in like heavy plate armor eventually, who's probably not sneaking around with anybody, is there to like crack skulls in. So sometimes it's nice to have the more like medium armor type person, just to have like kind of coverage, somebody who can put on a breastplate and have pretty good armor class but still be able to sneak around pretty well. Plus it's good for, I've found it's good for people to kind of stagger out what they need. So you have a person that would love a magic bow in your scout, and then you have a person who would love a magic big, you know, go to hell sword in that person. So having someone who would love to run into like magic shield or magic one-handed weapon is always cool, because then if you have like random magic items in a lot of campaigns, you have like a spread of people getting stuff. When you have like 4 characters that all use a longsword, it's like, we found a magical longsword, and it's like, well, and I guess now we're fighting because there's only one to go around. Wait, what? We lost you. Chris is gone.
Oh no.
I cannot hear you. Hold on.
Oh. We can hear you now, so that's good.
Audio now?
I know I had to mess with people's audio Cummins thing.
What did I miss?
Audio and technology problems.
There we go. Hello.
Anything important?
I don't know yet. But yeah, if you're thinking cleric, there's lots of amazing options. There's so many like domains to go into. I know I've had a custom magic item in a back pocket, where it's just based on a literal like foam sword that we got at, you know, the Spirit Halloween, because that's, when you're a dad and you're a nerd and you go for like kids costumes and you see a giant foam sword, you're like, I have $20, I'm getting it. And
Give.
it's like, it's just going on a hook on the wall, but it's fun. But it has this like lion face on the hilt, and it got me thinking of like a magic sword that can be attuned by a cleric that lets them use their turn undead on beasts, as well as undead. So it's a like a focus and a channel for a cleric to like expand their turn undead channel divinity option.
Yeah, because it sucks when you're playing a cleric and you're just like, oh, I get turn undead, and you never encounter any more undead.
Right.
Right.
Sometimes that's the DM being like, all right, well, they have a feature that just negates this encounter, so whatever. I know when someone takes alert, I'm like, well, I guess we're not doing traps anymore. Which is why we usually, in a session 0, and then privately, other times, I ask you all to like message me build ideas and thoughts you have on future feats and things like that. Specifically so I can be like, ooh, they really like to disarm traps. They like built half their character around being good at it. And then this feature you're choosing just eliminates the need to disarm traps, because you'll just like go around them, because you can just spot where they are.
I have a mooch.
So it's one of those like, hey, why don't we not? There is a doggo.
He follows me around whenever I make popcorn because he loves popcorn. Here,
Right.
Trooper.
But yeah, so we have basically how this would work out. We would have a big weapon smasher fighter person, who also has some like lockdown and tanking abilities. We've got the scout that can take care of the range damage, as well as the scouting and survival aspects. And then we've got the cleric, who can hang on to a couple of heal spells when necessary, and can, depending on the domain, can cover a bunch of other ideas.
Fireball.
Cleric is awesome, because another thing to think about, speaking of fireball, area of effect damage can be an issue sometimes, because when you have like the single sniper and even the one-on-one smashy stuff, you need someone who can do area of effect, but Cleric's actually amazing at that with the spell, which has a name that I am forgetting. There's a bunch of spirits swarming around, and they all like clock people in range.
Spirit Guardians?
Spirit Guardians, that's one. So, but yeah, Spirit Guardians is an awesome spell.
And a Guardian Angel, I think.
Yeah. And
The
then
one where it summons a big Guardian Angel.
yeah, and there's Spirit Weapon is targeted damage, but it's still when a cleric gets spiritual weapon and Spirit Guardians going at the same time, they're just like destroying little enemies that are around people, taking out large ones with the targeted attacks. Then just firing off cantrips and stuff. So you can have a cleric that's just the magic damage dealer, and be perfectly happy.
Clerics are so freaking versatile with how many domains they have.
Right.
Sorry, my twin sister has appeared.
How's
I
that?
got a little distracted. Oh. I've been
very-
assaulted.
It's a very professional environment we've cultivated here.
Exactly.
Um,
Very professional D&D environment.
right. Very professional, entirely. Yeah, that's a pretty well balanced party where everybody can kind of get to do stuff, and then as like background and character info gets filled out, then you as a DM, it would be my job to kind of weave all that into a story stuff. Like just off of what we have so far, there's Umbra's character. I would need to figure out, okay, where is this clutch of giant society? Where are they not being like hunted down by like nearby humanoid civilizations? And where are they on the borders? They're probably up in a mountain, probably relatively near civilization. And the Goliaths and half orc and orc societies kind of go through the valleys that are surround that. So I'd have a whole chunk of map now pretty well decided. It's like, all right, mountain range, giants, and then these societies kind of stay in this area, and then there's probably a rough border with the bordering civilizations, where we would work in some of the other people's backgrounds. So like Tay with the scout, what would be a cool like background for the scout?
Outlander.
I don't have any of my stuff with me.
Outlander is very stereotypical. It fits perfectly. I don't always need things that fit perfectly.
Pirate monk.
I know one thing I've seen that I enjoy is the what are they called? It's like the urban bounty hunter. So they're the person who like hunts people down, which brings them out into the forest fairly often. You could also go something simple like soldier, like a scout in a thing, and you were separated from the main unit, and maybe like if you want to go tragic backstory, you can have the didn't see the enemy in time to warn the unit to get them out of harm's way. And I'm very sad all of my friends died. That's not every backstory has to be tragic though.
Ooh. Yeah, well, I like tragic backstories though.
Yeah.
My druid character is a furbolg and lived with her family in the forest, and there's a group of wizards who are like burning down forests and stuff for the empire so they can expand.
Mm.
And killed their entire family because they refused to leave, so the wizards came, and she had her newborn baby and was running out of the forest. Her husband went back to try to help people. Her baby died choking on the smoke, and she was the only survivor. Like, I love doing that kind of dark stuff, but I find it difficult for rogues to...
I think we have Jonah coming in, which is why we're all glitched out as far as where people are.
Okay.
But yeah, if you wanted to lean into that, it could be the same idea where you have the scout missed or saw like a small unit approaching. Like there's 5 people approaching our unit of 1,000 soldiers. Like, who cares? It's fine. And then they get close enough and they just wave their hands, and like 4 or 5 fireballs all just go off in unison, just blowing up the unit. And and then from then on, you are wanting, you have like a prejudice against wizards, because it just sets off that memory of these wizards, and you just want to put an arrow in their throat when you see them, and it's like hard for you to like not just murder them if you see them.
Yeah, that's what's happening with my druid, is it was wizard orcs that were doing it. And she sees an orc and just shuts down.
Break down.
Side note, wizard half-orcs are amazing. Having a wizard that just doesn't drop when they get knocked down to 0 is very good. It's pretty
especially
cool.
when they're just like, that was cute.
Like,
my turn. Fireball.
Nothing else synergizes whatsoever, but it is fun. At least Tasha's lets you kind of move the stats around if your DM is is cool with that, which I think most DMs I've seen have been pretty reasonable about that. I haven't seen too many people that I would want to play with that are like super hardline about it. So I know when I first saw it, I was kind of like, do we want to like just have lower numbers? It's fine. Like, was kind of my attitude before, but now after seeing it and like working with it and stuff, I'm just sort of like, yeah, it's fine. Jonah's here.
You're very cute. Go away.
Hooray!
Jonah, quick! We have a sniper that scouts stuff out. We have a melee smasher, locks people down tank. We have a cleric of undetermined origin. So we need a 4th character for a party right now. Go, or you lose 5 levels.
You are muted.
You are muted. Those consequences are real, very serious.
Well.
You will
These
be
are the
level
consequences of my
0
own
going
actions.
into session 15. All right, Jonah's still figuring out the mic. But to the larger, I'm gonna hit I'll hit stop recording or something here in a minute. To our larger discussion, that's pretty much how if you want to do a campaign where people meet in session 0 and work out the characters, that's kind of how it goes. Usually you'll have a whole session 0 going over all of the like social expectations with everyone, and as well as like hash out characters, unless you're doing characters individually and separately, which is is fine. You can end up with gaps in your party structure kind of thing that way, but sometimes for a lot of campaigns that's totally fine. But yeah, that's kind of how it goes, and
Sometimes
it's also a fun time to like roll stats if you're gonna roll stats, because then you're all, especially if you're on like a like Roll20 or some sort of dice roller where everyone can see it. There's that collective like ooh when somebody gets a 5, and the collective like oh when somebody gets like 2 18s.
and they're just like, well, someone's gonna have have 20 in a stat.
Right. It's like, all right, somebody gets to take their key feats at level 1. Yeah. So that can all be good times. But we're gonna switch gears into the campaign for the Warriors of Eastmount. Let me hit a button and